Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sword of Light and Truth podcast with Maziel Sky and our co-host O'Reilly. So, like I mentioned in the other testing, we are going to be. This is like a first-time run for us. So the way I had seen it is that a private chat pops up here um, where we're streaming from. So that's what I'm hoping that I'm able to see if anybody had any comments. Um, I have to do everything with notes. Okay. The only time I go flow is if we're doing coding, healing, the remote work, and gritting. Okay. So today's, I didn't even realize, guys, that today's April 4th, 2026, and that it's a magical number for us today. So if you guys, I know the coders already got this already, just by me saying that alone. Well, first, let's welcome you guys. Let's welcome our family, our soul tribe, state, national, common law, soul tribes, tribes of the new earth, mankind, and all of you that are watching in YouTube world and on Facebook. And what I was going into is to the date. Like when we picked the date, I didn't really do it based on any moons or on any numerical value. I just aligned with what I felt in the flow and trying to get it done in between all the projects we're doing. So we have 4426, because 44 is a magical number. And then we have 26, which equal to 8, and you add 4 and 4 is 8. So we have double 8 for abundance. And also, if you turn it around, it's infinity, right? So we have infinity and we have abundance. Um, we're going to lay down the groundwork and the foundation of what this podcast is going to consist of. As you know, we have listed it as a sort of light and truth podcast. It'll be surrounding disclosure and solutions. So we're going to start this podcast with laying the groundwork and foundation on history, disclosure. A lot to say from there regarding mankind origins, history, stargates, interdimensional wars, and solutions. So solutions such as food forests and homesteads, creating, medicine from natural plants, and of course, resources that combat geoengineering, which is a big concern for a lot of people that are awake. And what we need to do is create and expand the solutions. So we're opening that vortex and not constantly worrying about the problem, right? Because there's a lot of collectives that are in fear, which is what the matrix wants, and the government and the deep state and so forth, as opposed to having you in creation love and knowing that you're divinely protected. And we have everything to divinely protect us, not just in our soul or astral bodies, but also in this matrix itself. Everything is real and everything's not real, and it is the reality that you are creating. So those are more tools that you'll get along the way. Um, and we're anchoring the New Earth timeline. When calls are prompted to, I'll also be doing remote clearings, healings, and detachment work. So I'm going to just give you a little bit about me, and then I'm going to soon pass the ball to O'Reilly. So he is the co-host. He's also my husband, and um, my name is Maziel Sky. So Maziel means um, the one that came down from the heavens or the stars. My mother did not know that what the name meant, but she named me after a famous singer that was performing in Spain, and she just called. She said she's a beautiful woman. I want to name her Maciel, right? But throughout the thread of life, we start to find out who we are, especially the ones that are, if I say it correctly, emissaries, right? Yep. Emissaries. That we are emissaries from the celestial, you could call it heavens or galactic, right? Civilizations or divine realms, right? So we are here, and we're multidimensional beings, and we can experience multidimensional realities, and we are also, well, I would have to say, speaking for myself, um, I am a light warrior, so I do interdimensional light warrior work, and also here in this plane. I woke up from my amnesia personally about 5 years ago in the year 2000 when sacred codes revealed themselves to me for 3 days. There's a whole story about that. We'll have a podcast about that life thread and history as I help guide some of you through that. This podcast, like I mentioned, is going to work in diverse and different, well, better said, different segments, right? Because we need to touch base on a lot of things. And I am also putting full intentions. The Celestials really want you guys to get vocal. They want you guys to spread the message. Whatever is your truth, what that reality is for the highest good, and to get on platforms like this and to also open up your throat chakra, and we can help with that healing and opening that up as well. I work with codes, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that later. So some references that we're going to be speaking on is scripture decoding and writings, right? Because that's a big one. I'll let you touch base a little bit on scripture decoding and writings, like biblical messages and how people have that has become a control mechanism. You can touch base a little bit on that right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're going to be looking at something from the book of Enoch a little bit later in the show. And if you look at history and you look at the effects of brainwashing, mind control, and combined with any combination of family life, government control over you, school systems, you find that they all really pair together nicely in sinking in real deep brainwashing mechanisms. And scripture is probably one of the most elite forms of words used for that very purpose.
Yeah, so that's that. So we're going to be speaking on different sources. We're going to be using different books regarding disclosure, secret meetings, and hidden knowledge. So we will be referencing to that material because we know it helps people um, who are transitioning or need references to go do their homework, because we don't want you just go by what we're saying or what we're presenting. You have to do your own research at the end of the day. You're a sovereign being and you have to claim your sovereignty, and you have to find what that divine truth is to you. We're also going to be speaking and touching on topics of Ashiana Dean. So Ashiana Dean, Secrets of Amente Hidden, Secrets of Amente Hidden, and or higher dimensional realm, a source of Akashic records, sacred plane, and also reference as return to Amante Earth, right? So, we're very lucky and blessed to have a bunch of podcasters that we're going to ask to also come on here so that, we can help spread that word and we can keep expanding. There's no competition here. This is about creation and creating the new earth realities and to assisting everyone here. So you have heard of him. He also speaks about the eternal life. He's a doctor and he goes live a lot. Some of you may know him. He uses a lot of her content, and also we have this other podcaster I do follow, and he also speaks about Ashiana Dean's works, right? And he always says, "Oh, holy ones," and I love it when he says that because he references to all of you as holy ones, because that's what you are. The prime creator created you to be an angelic earthly being, right? And so a lot of distortions came, and a lot of distortions came into the DNA. And so right now we're shifting into reality and timeline that you will have an infinite life on this planetary system in the 5D above dimensional planes. So I think we can. Okay, so I see how I did this. I put a little guideline because I wanted to make sure I didn't get off track and that everything led into what we're about to speak about. So we're going to be touching base on angelic and celestial beings being benevolent and malevolent. Some people call the celestial beings galactics. Some don't feel comfortable calling them that because some of them refer to them as angelic, right? So you do whatever feels the most comfortable for you. So they just told me, so I'm going to be doing some light language here, and it makes sense because I just had that listed on my sheet to talk about it. So it might be to open up this space. They said it's to open all things. So um, the Light Council is present right now, and they're saying, Kariana kuyana senia kashenia lakaiana. Kuyana senia shenia ha su senia nakaya. So I just saw a clearing. There's a number of you who need some clearing. Maybe some of you are feeling very tight, very stressed, a little pressure here. You can also put in the comments to relate to that. You're saying it's a release. When we release this, you're also releasing your throat, right? And we're also releasing what's congested over here in your heart chakra, chest area. And then we did a clearing all the way up, right? Out through the crown. So that's open to receive. So only open to receive what is for the highest good is what we put in a Christ crystalline consciousness field, declaring that. And we do not comply with any dark energetic fields. We do not comply. We do not comply. We do not comply. It is forbidden. All abominations upon the earth is forbidden. All transparency is in the now frequency. So it is done, and it's done. It is. You must understand it is the time is now. We are working the I am frequency. I am now. I am that I am. They said also to reference the other councils that are normally present that we work with. So we also work with the Lyran Syrian Council. We work with the Arturians. I am part and work with the Earth Alliance and the Guardian Alliance. Okay, and we are light beings. So Jason and I are light beings here. Everyone is a light being, is a form of light being, right? The sun come direct from source right away. For this mission, we came down. You understand? We came down for this rescue mission. You rescue yourself. We are only here to assist. No soul interference. You understand? It is to bring your awareness, your forgiveness, release of all karma. Everything is forbidden that is against the will. So it cannot be against the will. This is very, very important. But God gave you free will. Creator, prime creator, gave you this free will. And so we are in a huge, we could say we're winning. We're in because we're anchored into this timeline, but we're in a timeline that we're releasing all those things, right? All those things are forbidden. And we're doing it in infinite timelines. We are cutting all loops with swords of truth and light. We're cutting all these loops. We command it, we bring it in. We come by the authority of the heavens, and we come by these authorities to release all these loops. We have come with this command. We are breaking, releasing all AI controls, all cords that are present right now, if anyone receiving these messages. So we're going to come back into this. Light language is a form of energy-based communication that is often used with sounds, tones, and symbolic gestures. Light codes, upgrading, healing also codes we can do it with your system too. So I had to put that more in a formality, so to say, because I'm very all over the place. So most people get to know that in the podcast. It's very hard for me to ground. So I have to put certain words in place because I might miss them for those that are really grounded into words. I'm not great with what you call etymology of words. Is that how you say it?
Etymology?
Yeah. Etymology of words. And sometimes somebody could be, now that also too, that we've really anchored, and when you remember who you are, sometimes you just more geared to speak other languages or vibration frequency at the time. We're going to have guest experts to discuss a lot of the topics that I had mentioned, and we're going to start with a diving deep on the sacred writings of Enoch and the fallen celestials, and correlating into the solutions on how this led into matrix governmental control and transitioning into self-governing systems. We're going to touch base, and that will go deeper on topics today's to establish a sort of light and truth foundation. We're going to dive deeper with our co-host, my husband, my divine union soulmate partner, Orilis. And he's going to help us dive deeper. And if I do this correctly, I'll transition the document on the screen. Now, I tried to enlarge it, guys. You might want to try screenshot it or just take a reference to it because I couldn't enlarge it as much as I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to transition it, but he's going to be referencing this document and reading. So the reason I picked this, he can say, "Are you sure? You sure this is going hardcore?" Is because we are hardcore right now at this point. Okay, I'm just putting it real. I am working with transitioning the system and being a bridge. This is as hardcore as it gets. And you guys need to know where the original source of all things happened, right? And you know it happened with the fallen, but it goes so much deeper. And we can call them fallen celestials, right? So it could be the Galactics, you could call them Anunnaki, you can call the Draconians being involved, you can call them Lizzies, right? You can call them fallen angels. Whatever it is you resonate with, we're going to reference it with the book of Enoch. So let me see if I can transition this. 1 second. If I can, I will. If I can't, he'll just be reading it. Layers.
While she's playing with the technicals, the Book of Enoch historically was written prior to the time period that a lot of you have heard referenced, the flood. Some believe it was a worldwide flood. Some believe it was a localized flood. I don't know if that is as relevant as some want to make it seem, but Enoch was a very special light worker who walked upon the face of the earth, had a very close ambassadorial relationship with the Creator Source. And when he received these opportunities to go and see different realms, he reported on them. He wrote it down. And he captured some of the essence and some of the relationships of what goes on, oftentimes unbeknownst to those of us that are walking in 3D reality of this earth. For those of us that have gotten outside of the 3D confines, it makes a lot of sense. For those who have a mind to think for themselves, you've had spiritual awakening, you've been given eyes to see and ears to hear, it makes even more sense. So it does require you to maintain a mind that is not triggered in order to really get into some of the in-depth stuff related to what Enoch talks about. And in this particular section that we're going to study this evening and look at, he has been an intercessor between the fallen angels and the Creator. And here he describes in this chapter 69, and you'll see some of the highlighted areas. There's some relationships that are talked about, and there's 4 particular fallen angels in this passage that are talked about. And he talks about how each one carried out their role. And of course, ultimately their role was to create distance between us and Creator Source. And religion does a good job at that. In fact, that's probably one of the primary focuses of religion, is to break people into sections, give them some set of creeds and doctrines that they can rest their head on and feel comfortable about, and then make sure that people think, well, mine's the right one and yours is the wrong one. And then there's your division. But it's division around something that's holy, something that's righteous, something that's good. And so it's a different kind of division because it's so deceptive that people justify it. And once we start justifying things that are destructive, there's no end to the destruction and the mayhem that can be created in families, and relationships with friends, with the earth, with the Creator. And so, as we begin to examine our lives and look at things, well, what are the things that we've been most influenced by, and in our growing up and being reared on this earth? And one of those things is words. Think about words. Think about the use of words. There's the spoken word. There's the written word. There's the etymology of a word. There's the legal interpretation of a word. There's the industry use of a word. And so the same word could be used 2 or 3 different ways. It can mean 2 or 3 different things depending on the context in which that word occurs. So what we're going to look at tonight, and why Maziel calls it hard hitting, is because it's something that's kind of hard to accept, because it's going to challenge your core. And in the passage, I'm going to start up at the top just so you kind of get a list of some of the angels that were involved. Mankind. So this is where they crossed the physical boundary and began to have relationships with those of us that were created specifically on this earth to copulate between ourselves. And so this foreign angelic seed came in and started messing with the original plan. And so there you have the second step of the carrying through of rejecting the Creator Source's plan. The name of the third is Gadriel, and he discovered every stroke of death to the children of men. He seduced Kava, which was Eve, and discovered to the children of men the instruments of death, the coat of mail, the shield of the sword for slaughter, every instrument of death to the children of men. From his hand were divided to them who dwell upon earth, from that period forever. So war has been with us since this time, and on earth, when things occur over long periods of time, it's considered forever. Not eternal, it's just earthly countenance is forever. And so here we are today watching the same old loop. We're now in another country, messing with another group of people, and you know good and well they're not telling us the truth, the real truth behind it. In fact, you'll probably hear me refer to this over the time that we spend together in podcast to come. There's a thought that was developed by a philosopher called Occam's razor. And Occam's razor says if you want to know the most likely reason why something occurred, look for the simplest thing you can find. And that's why it occurred. And that's usually greed, money, power. It's not things like, oh, well, they have a nuclear weapon. It has nothing to do with it. Okay. That's just what they can get people to bite on and accept and rationalize. There is no way you can rationalize, or if there is, you tell me. You tell me if there's a way. Tell me how you could rationalize being a country going into another country and bombing those people indiscriminately, taking their resources away from them, messing up their entire family culture, their historical landmarks, their schools, their infrastructure, and you can justify it because you don't want somebody to have something like a nuclear bomb, and that makes it okay to kill and go in there and do all kind of mayhem. I don't, but you can see it's a long history of this. The world, in fact, if you study wars at all, and you go throughout antiquity looking at wars, they always revolved around the same type of concept. Somebody else thought they were more righteous, more pure, better race, and so they're going to go in and take this inferior race, and they're going to force them into slavery and bondage and all kind of things. And history is replete with these types of examples, and that's why it will be with us forever. The fourth angel mentioned here is the one that we really wanted to spend some time on tonight. If you find yourself wrestling with any of this or having questions about it, please feel free to ask, and we will take your question from the chat and pull it out and discuss it some. But
so, excuse me, if I may. So some of the people on the chat, so on YouTube and on Facebook land, so they mentioned that we lost some audio when we did the transition. Okay. So we weren't aware that when you do transition, you lose audio. We thought we would still be on. So they lost you for that beginning part. But right now we're really going to get into the nitty gritty of what he's touching base on. It's the book of Enoch. You can find it in the Ethiopian Bible, in the Sefer. Did I say that right? Yeah, you can find it in, yeah. I usually say it everywhere. Yeah. And he was diving deep into how this is creating governmental control wars and so forth, and that everything is a distraction, guys. It's pretty much what it is. It's all distraction. It's not about religion. It's not about a lot of things that they say it is about. And after he's done with that, that brought me into thinking about, I got off a meeting before this, and it's good to mention it. But we're going to give it back to Jason. I just wanted him to know that we got those comments in that okay. We lost some of that beginning. Okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you and this is our first broadcast, so it's always got little challenges to it. So what we're watching is the level of control that was exercised by the fallen angels, and the fact that they had a hierarchy. And as I had mentioned earlier, before I began to describe the context that we're about to look at in the Book of Enoch, was that there's one thing that you have always, in fact, you were taught in order to communicate on this earth, on this planet. You were taught there was the primary way to communicate was to use words. Now there's written words, there's spoken words. I mentioned that before. And in fact, there are times that people will allude to spoken words as if they were written words. But then there's other times they'll call written words that's in a document, they'll call them contracts, or they'll call them testimonies, or they'll call them affidavits. They'll call them all kinds of things. But those are words that are written down. In fact, a fun question to ask yourself is, which one are we talking about? Which one is Scripture talking about whenever it says the Word of God? Mm-hmm. All right. Is it talking about the written word or the spoken word?
And I'm always going to be like the other. I have to speak in different realities. So that's one version. And then the other version is because it has been translated so many times, or where it's being taught from, what God? right? So there's certain scriptures that they're not talking about the prime creator, and a lot of people don't know that until you decode the Bible and you decode other books and you go deeper into outside of it and use other sources and references, and you'll start finding out that the Anunnaki is also considered one of the prime creator gods, right? And you'll start one of the Ashiana Dean teachings that we'll be diving deeper into too. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to touch on this subject. It also speaks about the Jehovian gods. So when you've gotten Bible studies in a lot, especially in the Hispanic culture, they also say Jehovah, right? Because that's what you're taught. Jehovah. Jehovah is found in a couple of Bibles, not too many versions today. And then if you study with Jehovah's Witnesses, they say it was written off, right? But through that Jehovian God, it is related to the Anunnaki if you do a deeper dive. And they also reference to the mankind as the slaves. So even in Jehovian studies, like Jehovah's Witness studies, they'll also mention that we are the slaves, right? I said, well, that would make sense. When I did study, Jason and I have a lot of history in studying. Well, what was where you studied?
Well, I went to a Baptist seminary.
A Baptist seminary school. And then when I went to college, I did study theology, and then I studied with a whole bunch of different Christian sects. And then I also became a revert in Islam and experienced Islam. And so I can speak from both. So I'm going to tell you, like, we're going to come back into this, but even getting off a meeting call earlier, and it was an emergency response, how we can serve the people, they even brought up Islam. This isn't about Islam. The war is not about religion. That's what the bank-run wars want you to think. So I'm going to pass the ball back to Jason.
Yeah, which by the way, if you study just the history of wars in America, going back to the Revolutionary War, then the Civil War, then the three wars, they were all created and funded by banks. Banks make tons of money off war, and they'll fund both sides of the war. In fact, British money was lent from British wealthy tycoons to Americans fighting in the Revolutionary War against England. So that bankers have no sides. They have one objective, and that is to enslave, and then through the enslavement, you can make tons of money. In fact, if anyone's ever listened to or followed studies that have been done about and Catherine Austin Fitts is the one who enlightened me on this matter, what's the most profitable form of income making? Drugs, sex, or human slavery? And by far, it's human slavery. When they've done the studies, they make the most money off that. So if they can enslave us and tax our labor and control our wage and what we can earn, they can make all the money off of our labor. And we work like slaves. We may have some money to go buy some of the things we want. But we don't have near the money we should have. But words, getting back to our topic, words are what the primary thing we need to focus on, because they have an influence. Now, words have been studied from a frequency standpoint, and so some words have higher frequency than other words. So I'm not trying to say that words are bad, especially spoken word. But what we're about to talk about is not spoken word. We're about to look at the dangers of the written word. And so Penuel was the one who taught, and he discovered to the children. In other words, he taught the children of men bitterness and sweetness. And he pointed out to them every secret of their wisdom. He taught them to understand writing and ink and paper. Now, we know why, and some of you probably heard this, why do they call it spelling bees? What are we doing? We're casting spells. Okay? These are written words specifically that we're talking about. Yeah, you can use verbal words to cast spells. But this particular angel, archangel, the particular fallen angel, was primary focus was to teach us how to use the written word to create the following issue. Therefore, numerous have been those who have gone astray from every period of the world, even to this day. For men were not born for this, thus with pens and with ink to confirm their faith. Now, think about that a second. Men were not born to confirm their faith with pen and ink. What is it that we get from most churches whenever we've been initiated and accepted into that church? We get a written document that says we've either been baptized or we've been somehow converted into that group, and there's a certificate that goes with it, or there's a piece of paper that is generated from it with ink on it and words on it. Now, that's completely different than if I spoke to you and I said, you are accepted, you are initiated, you are a part now. To put it in writing gives me something I can hold on a piece of paper, and for somehow that makes me think that makes it real and legitimate, because that's what we've been taught. And that is the exact opposite of the truth. Let's look at what has been done with pen and paper and that type of affirmation of your faith through pen and paper. Since we were not created for this, like the angels, that they might remain righteous and pure. So in other words, if it wasn't for the written word, we couldn't hide behind documents that are written so that we could do things that are misleading. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that we have a doctor and they have their certificate that shows they've completed their medical prerequisites to become a physician and practice medicine on you. Now they've arrived on the scene with some type of status that seems to be elevated above others. In other words, we don't give janitors certificates to be janitors. We don't give farmhands certificates to be farmhands. So you can see already where this creates division in a society. The written words are now creating division by putting them on a document and giving somebody a status that is no better. They as a man or a woman are no better than anyone else. But that's not what the document implies. Then we allow them to practice no matter how bad or how good they are. In fact, one of the questions you probably should ask yourself is, what is the number one killer of Americans? What's the top disease that kills Americans?
If you guys want to chime in and put in the chat, we have Eric Bertrand that wrote, until one can read the scripture properly, they will be led by the false poser gods, not the God, Lord Creator, and how it was meant to be read. Great job, guys.
Yeah, and Eric, I would even go as far to say this. When one can have a relationship with their Creator without even reading the written word, just hearing Him and speaking to Him with their words and His words coming back to them, that's the goal we really want to reach. So I look at the written word as we're graduating into the spoken word only relationship with our Creator. We don't want to reside just on the written word. But you bring up a very good point, and that is a good starting place. And what I'm kind of emphasizing at this point about the written word is how it allows people to hide behind something, even though they may not be legitimate. So if you look at the number one killing disease in America, if you look at the charts where they include just the basics, it's usually cancer. Well, it's actually heart attack's number one, still is, has been for a long time. And then you've got cancer and COPD. Those are your top three. But unbeknownst to many people, the number one killer is physicians. And they have found it comes from a measure of ways. Of course, you got surgeons, and we give them a pass because they're doing surgeries on people, and so anything can go wrong in a surgery. Then you've got prescriptions that people take that are given out to them by physicians, and they're either administered incorrectly or they're taken incorrectly. Then you've got the multitude of errors that occur in hospitals between orders getting passed from physicians to nurses to the patient. And so medicine kills, the practice of medicine kills more people annually in America than the top 3 diseases do. That's how bad it is.
And they have a contract and a
They
license.
they have a certificate. They have a parking
and
spot with their name on it.
to like the pharmaceutical industry to
That's
certain
the
degree,
next group.
right?
That's the next.
And
on the pharmaceutical bottles are all those words that tell you everything about the pill. All right. And so there again, they hide behind the words. The words are not there the written word is not there to dissect the truth. It's there to hide behind. It gives people the ability to do all kinds of deceptive things behind written words. And that's what its purpose is. That's what it's there for. So I can be fake. I can say I'm something I'm not because I've got a piece of paper that says that's what I am, but that's not what I really am.
It leads to a lot of distortion. So now if you think about it, we start diving into the Bible. This was a reference from Enoch. So if you want to even go down further, look at all the changes they did with the Bible and misleading people and hiding behind the writing, right? Even though they have that rule that says if you change anything in the Bible, you're going to be, punished and stuff like that, right? But who's holding them accountable in this 3D world? Like, this is really Satan's playground, right? Or the satanic playground system. So, which is 3D. We're anchored in the 5D above timeline. I would have to say we're just in the bridge. But one of the things that I also wanted to emphasize on was how it separates you from. They put like an illusion of the separation of your connection to source. So that was something that we have spoken about. If you can dive a little deeper with that and read that part there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Confirm the faith.
Yeah, so it says, so he goes on to say, so let's look at this. So now we've got theologians and we've got schools, seminaries, and we've got all these books that these different religious figures write. And they tell you how you should believe, and they try to prove it with the written word, and they give you this idea that in other words, if I read a book from chapter 1 and to the end of the book, then I would think, well, when I got done with this book, I'll have a body of knowledge that will make me have an understanding and will affect me in a way that will make me a better person and make me a better believer and whatever else I think it's going to make me better at. But in reality, what it usually does is it puffs us up. It gives us a false sense of security. It does not enhance our relationship with Creator Source. It does not enhance our relationship with others. It usually ends up making us prideful and arrogant, and the ego gets involved, and we become puffed up. And we think our knowledge has made us something, we're more aware than the person next to us. And that's what it says in the very next verse. It says, since they were not created for this, like the angels weren't created for written word either. They might remain righteous and pure if they didn't have the written word. Nor would death, which destroys everything, have given effect to them. By this, their knowledge, they perish. This also power consumes. So you can see by us thinking that I've got some degree or I've got some certificate or I've got some license, that it ends up leading us to a knowledge that we perish from and brings about our death, because that is not how spiritual beings are supposed to operate. But that's everything we've been taught from the cradle to this point in our lives. And we are convinced that if it's on paper, that makes it true. And I hate to say this, but it's the opposite. If it's on paper, it's probably not true. And it definitely is going to have some issues if it is on paper and it's written. So the word now, let's go to the spoken word. This doesn't deal with this here, and so we're going to deal with it another
what
time.
Verse is it? Are we on now?
We're at verse 15.
Verse 15. So guys, this is the book of Enoch 69,
Chapter 69, verse 15.
That we're on right now.
Yep. And so we basically have just gone through. So let me just go through it one more time to give you the plan of how written words create the problems. So this angel, Penuel, said that he taught people how to write. He taught them to understand writing, ink, and paper. The 3 things you got to have. All right. So that's where certificates, license, and all that. That's what I'm talking about. Therefore, numerous have been those who have gone astray from every period of the world, even to this day. And we've discussed the ways that the written word can cause you to go astray. Okay. And so that's where we currently stand. If I understand that written words can be used in a way that causes harm and brings death and creates a puffed up knowledge and creates separation and division. But I give it a sense of authority that it does not have in my exercising of the way I act and behave on this earth. And I'm the one helping bring forth the very issues that we're trying to resolve, which is do no harm. That's the number one rule. Do no harm.
Do no harm. You can't do any harm if you're living unconditional love, the unconditional love frequency. So sounds and words, even the indigenous, they didn't speak these languages that we speak today. The true indigenous, everything was sound frequency, telepathic communication. And so, because what it was happening, you are so connected to the prime creator source, and the messages you're getting direct connection from, and you're walking in that, and then you have a deeper connection to those around you because you do, right? So this is why we were able to, mankind was able to do that a long time ago, but we have come to a space that more collectively people are starting to do that, right? On an individual base. But what I mean by collectively is that you're hearing more and more about it through all different social media networks, soul families, soul tribes, that this is this understanding. You got it, right? Whether if we're speaking in light language, or if you're somebody's thinking something and you're like, oh, I knew what you were just about to say, right? Or you got a phone call and you're like, well, that person was just on my mind. That's telepathic connection right there, right? Those are small examples of it. And I did want to mention, because Eric also commented, and I think this is important to note too, that the war is also with the Stargates and the tomb of Gilgamesh, and that he bought the Ethiopian Bible. So let's give him a round of applause for that, because everything that we do for self-development and growth, our own self-education, is worth investing into. And so going back to the words, and also, people do spells, they put it in paper too, right? You've heard of that. So they definitely gave us the keys to open up the satanic system, and mankind didn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. There may have been those that
even if
had been connected, right, that made a choice willfully. They were still being affected by those around them in the system.
Yeah, they've done it. In other words, there was a plot afoot to make sure from the time we were born, we avoided using our eyes and we avoided using our ears. What do you do with those two things? With eyes you observe, and with ears you observe. With eyes you see, with ears you see. So when I think about this a minute, if you wrote me a letter and you sent it to me, and in the letter you were gushing and flowing and sharing all these wonderful things you thought about me in the letter, would it mean the same to me if you were, would it be equal to you standing next to me, looking me in the eyes, letting my ears hear the words and the tones of the words and the frequency of the words you're using? Which would be the most impactful? Which would I be able to discern by looking at it and hearing it is the most real, the most realistic, right? And which one would have the greatest impact on my inner being? The spoken word would, not the written word. We should take every opportunity we can, and think about this now, because this is getting close to home for all of us. We should take every opportunity we can to call somebody and let them hear our voice. And if we can do it in a video way, let them see us as we connect to them and communicate with them. But it's so easy to just shoot that text message across or shoot that email across, because it takes that extra time. This is all intentional, guys, and this is how they keep us in this place they've got us in. And they're always encouraging us. In fact, I can remember how foreign it was to me when I first heard, this was 15 years ago, when they started saying, well, we're going to start using this thing text messaging so people won't have to call each other. And I thought that sounded ridiculous, because I grew up, that's what you did. If you want to talk to somebody, you called them. In fact, it took me the longest to ever get around to doing text messages. I wish now I'd never had. I wished I'd have just kept stuck with the calling idea. But I didn't. And I gave up a certain amount of my ability to communicate effectively in a way that's more meaningful. And so we hide behind words, and it's easy to hide behind words. It's much more honest of us to look at each other and talk to each other, or to at least by phone to hear each other talk to each other, than it is to put it in written words. Just keep that in mind. Those are habits we've got to look at, and how they've undermined us with them.
Yeah, we're getting a couple of messages in, and Eric Roy, I completely concur. Jason, Scripture is just a guide to attention.
To ascend, for ascension.
Open silence through meditation. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Rise the Christos up Jacob's ladder to the land of pineal gland. So that is so true. We also have Mara saying hola. We have Karen, Bryn, and who else chimes in? We have a couple people chime in. We have Loretta. Thank you, Loretta, for chiming in too, and for your support. Bryn, thank you, Bryn. We have met Bryn at the Super Soldier Conference, and some great things are happening because of that event.
Yeah.
And we also want to give a big shout out to Brett. Thank you, Brett, for chiming in too.
Yeah. Well, we are getting close. Do you have a time limit on this?
No.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
go with flow. There's no such thing
Okay.
as time for me.
Okay. All right. Good. I just want to make sure.
And for Facebook Nation and YouTube Nation.
Okay.
We just flow until we feel it's time to close. And did we get to read the last of that or not yet?
Yeah. Well, we can read verse 16. Well, I think I didn't read verse 16, did I?
13 to 15.
Yeah. Nor would death, which destroys everything, have given effect to them. But by this their knowledge they perish, and by this also power consumes. So I did complete that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I didn't really address that last sentence there. And by this also power consumes. So you got to ask yourself, if they say that by this their knowledge they perish, and by this also power consumes, if I make you the king, I give you a document that says you're the king, and now you have the power to go out and consume things. If I give you some sense of authority that you don't have, and I do it with paper, ink, and pen, then I have allowed you to run roughshod over the created beings that are living on the face of this earth, and treat them any different than you should. And so let me use this opportunity to share with you something about the term sovereign. To be sovereign means that you were created in a very unique, special way, with a certain grouping of rights that no one can take away from you. You are unique. You are. You may be a part of a collective, like snowflakes are part of a snowfall, and they're part of the collective of the snow, but they're all uniquely different. So we do have things that we have in common, but we have our uniqueness as well. And what power seeks to do that consumes you or consumes us is it tries to make us all the same. It tries to make us all think the same, live the same, believe the same. In fact, there's different terms they use for it, and I heard one of them today that I haven't heard in a while, and that's the beehive mentality, where everyone just does the same thing, and nobody has to say a word.
And then so that in some collectives is called when you become soulless, or an MPC, or become part of that MPC programming or soulless programming.
Did you say MPC?
MPC.
Like the
It's MPC.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
MPC. Oh, and Mara says hola, and Kathy Mal just chimed in. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for always supporting. Kathy and I connected through Facebook. She was one of the first people when I first did my live, and I think it was about 4 years ago, and we established a beautiful soul connection here on Facebook. We never met in person. It's beautiful that you have a family that you've never met, but that knew you're there for each other, right? Yeah, exactly. But bringing it back to the MPC and Soulless, right? This is part of the program. This is part of what the Matrix wants to do. And it also deals with harvesting and harvesting energy, and also deals with vampire energy and parasitic energy, which we will be going into that in other broadcasts. You say, right? Other podcast topics. Yeah. This also is going to dive deeper, that Jason will be doing also another podcast on how this relates to your divine trust. Right? Your divine trust law, and your sovereignty. One of the reasons that I started with this one is because we are state nationals, and we're going to provide some links. State nationals is when you correct your status and you return back to the land and soil, right? And I truly mean bringing it back to land and soil. So we're not just going to claim that sovereignty with our soul essence, but in a way that the de facto can understand, the corporation of the USA can understand as you're crossing the bridge over back home and returning truly to land and soil, meaning growing food again, owning your own land, and working community. That is true abundance. It's not the gold. The gold is a bridge. Tokens are a bridge.
You can't eat gold.
Everything's a bridge. That's just something else for someone to hold on to for control and power. Okay? So even if you had unlimited gold or unlimited funding for your project, the abundance is the community. It's growing pure food, pure water, and being in community and nourishing your soul and having this direct connection to source, or you can call yourself source or extension of source, whatever way you relate to it. You know, some people say child of God or son of God or daughter of God, right? So whatever resonates with you, because we are all limited. We have different realities. We all come from different studies, different backgrounds. Um, and so that's why I have to word it that way. I don't want to limit what we are saying. Again, we come back to words, right? That's how important they are. And one of the beauties of state national is that we come back into, and I'm still learning how to say etymology of words. And Karen might really be enjoying this right now because we had someone who's actually an expert in etymology, and she was on one of our meetings. And it's really important to have that because there's so many spellings, right? And so many contracts that you're tricked into because of that. So if you want to speak a little bit more about returning to the land and soil, just a little bit,
Yeah.
and then because we're going to leave those links below, because it's really important for you to start learning what it means to regain your sovereignty and how that protects you, right? And if you have any questions, you can always ask us. But the reason we're going to put the link is so you can do your own homework and you can ask us on other podcasts where we could dive a little deeper. And we're also going to have podcasts just talking about state nationals or just talking about common law, just talking about trust law, and then also talking about the spiritual nurturing food and other podcasts about permaculture and something and all the tools you can use for combating geoengineering and protecting your biofields and stuff like that, right? So you know, this is just laying down the strong foundation of what this is based on and how to reclaim your sovereignty, not just by declaring it, but the way things were bound, they have to be unbound. And that's I'll pass the ball back to Jason O'Reilly with that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the binding and the unbinding. The as the thing is bound is unbound is a maxim. And those who are a part of the American State National group, they've heard our Federation uh, guide and leader, Anna Von Wright, talk about that very thing. And so think about this a second. When you were born, you were given a birth certificate. Then when you got a little bit older, this at least for a lot of us nowadays, they just give them to them at birth. You got a social security number. And then when you started getting ready to drive, you got a driver's license. And you look at the way your name is spelled on all those documents, and every letter of your name is capitalized. And that's part of what's called semantic deceit. And this is another thing that comes in with written words. And so what that means is you, from the time you were born on paper, this is who you are. You have an all capital name. It shows up on every document the government reproduces or produces related to you, your tax returns, your IRS, all that stuff. And it's always capital. All the letters are always capitalized, even though you never write your name that way. And you weren't taught to write your name that way in school. And so that's not your real name. But yet, because it's spelled like our real name, we think it is our real name. And that's where semantic deceit comes in, and that's where written word comes in, and that's where documents come in to create an image of something that's not real. So you are a paper image. On paper, your image is something else.
Your property, your slaves, um, and it goes again. It's coming back to this exact scripture that we're talking about. Yep. It goes right back into that. It's not just the soul disconnection. It is the physical matrix, false illusions that the satanic system has created to play the game. Let's just say in the simulation. So that's why you hear a lot about simulation and games. And are you going to be the player? Right? Because it's already falling apart, the construct. Why don't you be the creative player? Right? And thank you, Brent. She said, that sounds exciting. Kathy says, yes. She was saying that while you were speaking. That's what the girls were saying. And what else I wanted to relate to that? It was the national, the spirit, the NPC, the losing the soul connection, right? And you can see because they look like zombies. So they haven't just disconnected, did it through words, they did it through food, they did it through poison, they did it through so many things. So isn't it time? People say, what can I do? What can I do? This is exactly what you can do. Start plugging into stuff like this. Start creating your own podcast. Start by creating action. How you create action? Doing small stuff like this, little by little, right? And one of the things I do want to clearly define here is that this is not, we're not talking about sovereign citizens. That's totally different. We don't call ourselves sovereign citizens. We're not part of the word of the title. That's also something that the de facto created, and they did it to mislead the public. And then they created other things under that so that they can make you sound like the dark, deceptive, one that's trying to hurt the public kind of deal, right? And that's all you're going to find on Google, okay? So we have to clearly define that. State National works with the rebuilding and reconstruction of the republic, which relates to the law of one. Returning back to the law of one. Nobody's higher than another person. It all goes back down to the community, and that's why we have committees. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so when you have family, you want to have unity. And when you have unity, you want to have community. You want your community to be in unity. And they're not going to do it with the written word. I can tell you that right now. You will find if you move into a freedom movement that you're going to do some kind of paperwork because you have to unbound yourself with paper from what they bound you in. But after that, you're going to do what we're doing. Your medium of communication is going to be words. You're going to talk to each other. You're going to learn from each other, not so much by reading, but by doing what we're doing tonight. You're going to teach. You're going to instruct. You're going to guide. You're going to inform. You're going to answer questions. That's with the verbal words, not the written words. And that's one of the things I do like about this format is it allows us to come to you the way we should be communicating with a fellow sovereign, a soul, a being of higher essence, a created, beautiful masterpiece that's unique. You should never accept the written word as any form of final communication from anyone that's important to you. You should always seek that spoken word. And then that way you know, because you can hear it from their heart, you can hear it with your ears, you can see it with your eyes, and you can validate it. You can't validate anything that's on paper. As far as the intent, the reason, the real intent, what's really going on, you can't do it. And so because we've become reliant on paper, we're very much like someone who's become reliant on a drug. They can't function without it. And then they learn how they don't know. They think I can't think without it. I can't work without it. I can't sleep without it. Whatever it is, they can't do without it. Well, because we've become so accustomed to written word, our skill sets in using our eyes and our ears to determine the truth have been jaded. They've been reduced to a lesser level because we're not good at using them and like we should be. But that's okay. You can get good at it.
And I need to add to that. It's not just, and you heard his words, right? But that comes back to also trusting your heart. And people are taught not to trust their heart because they were taught for false teaching. what is creator source? He's love, right? So don't you think that you would have that same peace yourself, right? I mean, Yeshua said it over and over again. You see me, you see the Father, right? If you and there's so many references as to if you did as he did or embodied the Christos, this is where you would be. It is part of that, right? It's part of that transition, the embodiment of Christ, right? The Christ is
In fact, referencing him and this topic, tell me one thing that the Messiah ever wrote. What book did he write? What words did he write and leave behind for us to see and read? He didn't. He left the spoken word.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't write it down. That's how powerful the spoken word is.
It's so powerful. So yeah,
it is.
People put exactly. Kathy Mouse said exactly.
Well, we're glad we're resonating with those that are on the podcast tonight, and that this topic is useful to you. And that's the intent of all of our times together. We love interaction with you, and we'll look forward to continuing this type of a process as we cover any topic. We're not going to approach it with a dogmatic sense. We're not going to approach it with a, I got the answer and there is no other answer. We want you to be actively engaged in what you hear and what you see, and become who you're supposed to come, because you're blooming, and we want you to get all those shackles off of you, and untether yourself from the bounds that have been the chains that have been put on you, and you're unlimited. Your potential is unlimited. As a creator, you're unlimited. The only thing limiting us is us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Eric wrote The Way, right? So I love that he said that, because I feel like we're gonna, like I said, we go with flow in space and time. Yeah. Kathy wrote great podcast. We love you, Kathy. We love all of you, and I really love that he put The Way. And the reason I say that is because what was Yeshua? The way, the truth, and the light. And the messengers in this system right now, and the ambassadors here, the ones that are visiting or visitors through human form right now or in astral form, they are saying we are the way, the truth, and the light. The way, the truth, and the light. So we have someone there, but at Shiana Liz Rivera. I think I know who that is. I think this is a very good what you guys are doing. We need to tell each other, help each other spread the knowledge. Thank you. And Loretta says thank you. And so we're also going to be putting a link to also a school platform where Karen Scalp is going to be providing more tools and information.
You'll have classes you can actually go through, interactive classes where we'll be talking and dialoguing with each other and bringing information to you.
So that's all going to be in the development. That's where in the phase of development it is. But that platform can help you correct your status.
We're going to build a community of like-minded.
Yeah. So you can return Atlanta so that way. And then we also she wrote Ketsy. Hi Ketsy. So she has a lot of knowledge. I might have her up on a podcast too, because
I'm sure we'll call on several of those in the audience.
Yes. And now Jadi, okay, so Jahira Taro, she just said, love this. So Jahira Taro will be on our next podcast. With her, we're going to be diving into more of a spiritual context. Also speak about, if you didn't mind, Jahira was also looking to speak on the abduction. So she was also abducted by celestial beings, and she'll be speaking about her journey. I'll also be speaking about my journey. This will be about the journey that people have questions about. Extraterrestrial. Are they malevolent? Are they benevolent? Are they really here to assist us? If they assist us, up to what degree? Like, why are they here? How many collectives are there? Right? So a lot of people keep hearing the Galactic Federation. Well, a lot of people don't know there's more than one. There's more than two. There's more than three galactic federations, and one of them is with the Luciferian order. So you always have to be really deciphering. There's some that stay neutral; they want nothing to do with the war. Some are here to help us, but they do it without violating any contracts, because even in these systems, contracts exist, but contracts are real and not real, depending on which way you want to look at it, right? And and how you can undo it. Because everything you can, because if you think about it, you can undo everything what we just spoke about, the word, right? By command, by creation. And so we're going to dive further into that. And she's going to help me also because, she's already in social media. She has her own pages. She'll be one that I can really work with to actually do my first podcast. This is my first podcast, but the next one that will be having somebody as an invited guest and seeing how we can link that up. We're going to practice that during the week, and we'll prepare for the next one. Then I'll put a date or time as to the next podcast. So we're going to be going into that because it's really important that people also understand we have a lot of super soldiers out there that are healing. They're healing themselves. And this all came back from government, hidden agendas, and things that need to be disclosed in order for it to get healed. And we need to end the interdimensional warfare. So that is part of the interdimensional warfare, breaking the loops. And by our command, we break the loops, we break the loops. We say it, we do not comply, we do not comply. Kathy wrote, I saw a UFO when I was 20 years old. My friend followed it, and it was in New York. It moved low and very slow. Yeah, right? Isn't this exciting? So we're going to be talking about stuff like this. So that's what's going to be the next podcast with Jahaira Taro. She's in the chat. We'll also be putting her links on. We're here to promote everyone's business. We're here to promote anything related to New Earth, anything that's going to help you evolve, anything that's going to help you heal, right? So Ketsi wrote, yes, I'm ready to dive in to this head on. I love acquiring knowledge, right? What I love about Ketsi, she just doesn't acquire it, she applies it. She's one of the system busters, breakers. So I wanted to end with, okay, I do personal coaching. I do personal coaching. We're also going to be doing virtual and in-person classes available. So in person, obviously, if we're in a local area, or we can schedule those classes. So if we have at least a number of people in Orlando, we could do one in person in Orlando. If we have that, we're in Florida right now, or any state or any county, right? The bigger the number, the more that we're able to do that, right? And then we're going to have virtual in-person classes, personal coaching. So if you have a personal coaching session with me, they'll also include a healing and an activation with that. And any healings that I do just on the side, or if I did things online, what I ask for the energy exchange is gratitude. That's it. And if you felt like you wanted to donate something to my Venmo or Zelle or something like that, just to help with the expenses as we're transitioning to the new earth, and for a form of gratitude or energy exchange, that's fine. I'll accept it. But I rather use my fees for the personal coaching time, and then include, if you did want to, we usually do include a healing and activation. It's usually what's called forward, and I do them remotely, so we don't have to be in person. So yes, we're able. If you haven't heard of that before, you can also look up remote healing, and you'll find that online. And that's one of the modalities that I do. I also do healing upgrades and activations with your fields. And so releasing old codes within your etheric body, and then upgrading with new ones. There are also sessions that we can activate etheric med bed. And with that etheric med bed, the Celestials give the codes, or they put us to see. We're pretty much the doctors working on you. So it would be called like psychic surgery, so to say. And if there needs to be a blueprint, blueprint of your soul blueprint, pulled down, they give the codes, and they add it so it could continue with your healing. With that said, any healing that you receive, you have to continually also work on yourself. And healing comes from within. And we're just activating, assisting you to learn how to heal yourself. And we're just tools along the way. It is all up to you. You are a powerful creator connected to source. You can heal yourself as soon as you want to be, or intended. And if you need some tools along the way, myself and many other healers are available, and they'll be on this platform as well. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it for the night.
All right, so we're going to sign off. I'm going to do signing off. Nazio.
Live long and prosper.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Please repost so I can watch the beginning. Great job. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you for supporting us. Please like and reshare. I need as many subscribers on YouTube because they say I need to get up to 1,000. So if you can help with that, that would be great. Obviously, we're going to try and get on other platforms like Rumble. Thank you, Bryn. She says thanks. You're welcome. Right? And thank you for being part of our journey. And we're grateful for you allowing us into your space. Good night.